The millionaire receives explosive warning from mysterious girl who sees the unthinkable. Jonathan Pierce stood at the corner of Wall Street and Pine, the city buzzing around him like a swarm of restless bees. Skyscrapers scraped at the sky, glass fronts shining under the sharp midday sun. The city's relentless rhythm pumped through the air, horns blaring, footsteps clattering, deals being whispered in sharp suits behind tinted windows. Yet somewhere inside Jonathan, the endless rush felt hollow. His empire towered above the financial district, but the distance he'd built between himself and everyone he cared about clawed at him like a shadow he couldn't shake. It was on this edge of power and isolation that she appeared. A girl, no older than 20, stepped from the crowd with a tremble in her hands and eyes wild with something Jonathan couldn't name. She looked out of place. Threadbare coat, tangled hair, face pale, as if the city's grime had already swallowed her whole. Jonathan Blink, heart pounding. Who was this stranger bursting into his world? His mind, sharp and fast, hunted for logic. Was it a scam, psychological trick, or worse, a warning carved from some dark truth he'd buried deep? He noticed then the pale blue ring around her eyes like shadows, exhaustion, fear, something else. She pressed a folded note into his palm, her voice urgent and raw. Look closely, before it's too late. Around them, heels clicked faster and business murmurs buzzed back to life. But Jonathan was frozen. His fingers trembled, gripping the note tight, a cold weight settling in his chest. The city's noise faded into a distant drone. Behind her, an old man muttered, "Crazy kid, always meddling." But the glance he threw her was sharp, almost scared. A whisper of danger flickered in the humid air. Suddenly, a dark figure watched from the glossy lobby behind Jonathan, eyes fixed on him like a predator. A rival hungry for fractures in the fortress Jonathan had built. The warning burned inside Jonathan now, a spark against his iron will. Had he chased his fortunes so fiercely that he missed the cracks underfoot? Could this girl's message be the beginning of a nightmare, or just a desperate cry for help? The city breathed around them, alive and hungry. Jonathan swallowed hard, the lump in his throat making his voice catch. His empire balanced on the edge of a blade he couldn't see, and standing before him was a mystery wrapped in fear, her true intentions hidden beneath trembling words. The question haunted the electric air. Would he trust her? Or would ambition drag him into ruin, alone? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jonathan's fingers tightened around the note, like it was a lifeline. The noise around him blurred, city sounds bleeding into distant echoes. The girl's wild eyes burned into his soul, desperate and raw. But before dust clouded the street, the girl screamed, stumbling back into Jonathan as the shock waves stole his breath. People scrambled, pushing and pulling, faces twisting in terror. Doors slammed, alarms blared, and in the middle of it all, Jonathan saw the impossible. The mysterious girl wasn't just a scared stranger. Her trembling hands moved fast. She bit her lip, revealing a faint glimpse of a small device strapped under her sleeve, blinking red. She wasn't here to warn. She was the trigger. Jonathan's heart stopped. The note, the warning, was a lie. Behind those tired, haunted eyes was a storm of betrayal. He dropped the paper. The words swirled on the ground. A trap laid for him. "Look closely," she had said. Jonathan looked at her again. Her face twisted in pain, or was it mockery? Her voice cracked once more. "This is only the beginning. You're already falling." Before he could answer, the girl fled, weaving through the chaos like a phantom. Onlookers froze for a moment. Then a wave of shouts broke loose. Someone shouted, "Was that her? The bomber?" The old man from before pushed forward, eyes wide with fear and something darker, hatred. He spat. "They warned us." But no one listens. Jonathan's mind reeled. Why? Who was she? Suddenly, a sharp hand grabbed his arm. The rival from the lobby, his usual cold glare replaced by something frantic. "Pierce, the company, you need to evacuate. Now. There's more coming. This isn't random." Jonathan's vision blurred. The empire he'd built was crumbling, but not from outside. This was war. Inside jobs, secrets he never knew, enemies wearing masks he once trusted. He looked back at the girl's escaping figure. His chest tightened, pain shooting through his ribs like an iron fist. She wasn't just a warning. She was the first strike. Someone whispered near him, voice trembling. "They say she's your daughter. You never told anyone." No one knew she existed. Dash. The city's breath caught. Jonathan's knees wobbled. His own blood had sent the blast. The rumor hung, thick and heavy. A son, daughter, secret life, buried under years of power and silence. Suddenly, his carefully built wall shattered into dust. Was this revenge, or a twisted plea for help? The sky above seemed to darken. Sirens screamed closer, and all Jonathan could do was stare at the empty space where the girl had vanished, heart gobbling itself up, wild, scared, broken. The man who ruled the concrete jungle was just a man now, broken and betrayed. And the fire was only just beginning. What was the truth behind the fallout? His empire, his family, himself. Jonathan's empire wasn't just going to burn. It was going to explode. Jonathan's legs felt weak, like they might fold under him at any second. The smoky air hung heavy, thick with dust and fear. Sirens wailed closer now, urgent and relentless. Around him, people scrambled, eyes wide. some frozen in shock, others tearing down the street like ghosts. His chest tightened, breath catching in ragged gasps. He stared at the cracked glass shards sparkling on the sidewalk, the note crushed in his palm. Then a sudden roar. The ground beneath his feet trembled. Everyone flinched, bodies swaying as if caught in a storm. Jonathan turned sharply, catching a glimpse of chaos pouring out of the building's side entrance. But something else snagged his attention. A sharp, clicking sound, slow and deliberate. He looked down. The note in his hand shifted, unfolding itself as if by its own will. The words blurred, then sharpened. His eyes blinked twice. Then the message changed. No warning now. A command. Come to me. His heart sank. His mind screamed. Hands grabbed his arms, pulling him back. The man from the lobby. His rival. Eyes wild. Voice hoarse. Pierce, you don't understand. You're in the crosshairs. They're after you. Jonathan shook him off, desperate to read again. Before he could process the words, a cell phone buzzed violently in his jacket. He yanked it out. The screen lit up. An unknown number. A video started playing. At first, just static. Then, the shaky image of a room. Dim light. A figure bound to a chair. The girl. Her eyes, wild but tired. "Daddy," she whispered. The room went silent. Jonathan's breath caught hard, his vision blurred. A voice changed, colder now. "You think you know her, but this is just the first lie." The video cut, but before he could react, a phone call came through. His assistant panicked. "Jonathan, it's worse. We found her body. The morgue. It's your daughter. She's dead. Long dead." Silence slammed into him. His fingers trembled, dropping the phone. "What?" "No. Impossible. But the video, the voice, that wasn't her." A cold realization clawed up his spine. He'd been played. The girl was never his daughter. She was a ghost. A ghost with a face like hers that haunted his nightmares. Whispers erupted from the crowd. "Faked it? The whole story? She's a ghost story. A lie." Jonathan's mind raced, tearing through memories, doubts, every truth he thought he owned, slipping away. Then a rough hand slammed his shoulder. He spun. The old man, the one who spat the words before, stood inches away. His face was pale, hands shaking. "She's not just a girl. She was you." Jonathan froze, confused. Listen carefully. The blasts, the note, the chaos. That girl was your shadow, your past, your sins. You created her to destroy you. The words hit like a hammer. Before he could speak, a flash from a nearby phone caught his eye. A news alert. Breaking. FBI reveal shocking secret. Jonathan Pierce, CEO, has been living a fabricated identity for years. Records show his real name isn't Jonathan Pierce. A hush swallowed the street. His world tipped sideways. The ground wasn't just cracking under his feet, it was vanishing. Everyone looking at him now wasn't seeing a titan. They were seeing a man built on lies. Jonathan's voice, barely a whisper, shaking and raw. Who am I? The city's noise faded again, but this time it was not distant. It was waiting for his next move, his next truth. The fire wasn't just outside. It burned from within. And now, the real nightmare had only just begun. Jonathan's voice, barely a whisper, shaking and raw. Who am I? The city's noise faded again, but this time, it wasn't distant. It was waiting for his next move, his next truth. The fire wasn't just outside. It burned from within. And now, the real nightmare had only just begun. Jonathan's knees buckled under him. His vision swam, as fragments of his life scattered like broken glass. The man he'd been, Jonathan Pierce, was slipping away. But then, something snapped loud and hard in the back of the crowd. A sharp gasp, like the world holding its breath. Eyes turned toward the source. A tall man pushed through the throng, face pale but fierce, holding Jonathan's breath caught the missing phone. Displaying a paused video, Jonathan blinked. The man raised the screen so everyone could see. The girl. But this time, the girl wasn't alone. There was another figure, a man. Older, familiar, with the cold eyes Jonathan knew too well. The camera shook as the man stepped forward, voice clipped and cruel. "Dad," he said. Jonathan's heart slammed. Not a random stranger. His brother, the one he thought had disappeared years ago, erased from every record. The one he buried beneath the weight of his empire. The video cut, then restarted. This time, clear. The brother, Michael, looked straight at the camera, speaking slow, deliberate. "You thought you owned everything. You built your empire on lies and blood." He held up a photo. 2 kids, laughing. No shadows, no fear. "From the beginning, we were twisted. You stole my life, my name, and crushed me in the dust." Jonathan's breath hitched. The crowd murmured, shock, disbelief. Michael pointed behind him, in the dim room. A stack of old documents taped to the wall. Birth certificates, court papers, all forged. "Your real name is not Jonathan Pierce. You stole mine. I died in your place. While you thrived, I was buried under a falsified death certificate." Jonathan's hands trembled. His empire, his identity, shattered. Then the true bomb dropped. Michael's face twisted with pain and rage. "The girl, your so-called daughter, she was never yours. She was my daughter, your niece." A silence ripped through the street. The face of the mysterious girl, the bomber, the ghost, flickered back in Jonathan's mind. He wasn't the target. He was the usurper. Michael's voice cracked, low and bitter. "I wanted justice. You stole my family too." Suddenly, sirens wailed louder. Police and agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. Michael raised his hands in surrender, but his eyes never left Jonathan. The crowd closed in, shouting questions none dared ask aloud. Did you know? Was this his doing? The betrayal? Jonathan could barely think. The weight pressed in. His own blood had been the fire burning him down. And now, here was his brother, alive. A ghost, a shadow, a threat. But before Jonathan could speak, a hand grabbed his shoulder again. This time, it was the old man, the one who whispered about shadows. His voice was a ragged breath. You never knew because you never wanted to. The world's a stage, brother. The real play starts now. Jonathan turned, confusion mixing with sudden terrible clarity. I'm a lie, a fraud. Michael's words echoed, chilling. And soon, the city will burn because of the truth you buried. Then, as the crowd closed tighter, a sound, sharp and deadly, cracked through the air. The ground shook beneath them. The fire wasn't just inside the building. It was in the secrets, and it was spreading fast. Jonathan swallowed hard. Who was the real enemy? And what monster had he become without even knowing? The empire wasn't burning. It was unraveling. Piece by bloody piece. And the next move? It was his brother's to make. The ground shook again. The crowd staggered. Gasps and cries tangled in the thick, smoky air. Jonathan's breath wrenched from his chest. Sirens screamed louder. Closer now. Police, FBI, everything converging like a tidal wave. He locked eyes with Michael, his brother. Rage and hurt etched deep in every line of that face. The man who had haunted his past, now standing inches away, ready to rip it all apart. But then something impossible happened. The girl. She suddenly appeared behind Michael, moving like a ghost slipping through chaos. Her face wasn't wild anymore. Not just fear or fury, but calm, almost cold. She reached out, fingers brushing Michael's arm. "Stop," she said, voice steady, but cutting through the noise like a knife. The crowd fell into tense silence. Michael whipped around, eyes narrow, confusion flickering. Then the girl pulled something from beneath her sleeve, a small ID badge, gleaming under the harsh city light. Police. FBI. Her name flashed back at Jonathan, a name he'd never heard before. Agent Emma Clark. His heart slammed with a force that nearly dropped him. Emma Clark, the girl who was the bomber, his daughter, the shadow stalking his empire, was an FBI agent. But not just any agent. One he'd once trusted more than anyone. Jonathan stumbled back, chest tightening, the world spinning sideways. "Emma?" His voice cracked, disbelief raw. Her eyes met his. No lies there. No doubt. But then, before anyone could react, a fierce explosion tore through the side street nearby. Flames burst like angry fingers, licking the sky. Smoke roiled black, thick, choking the air, swallowing screams. Amidst the chaos, Emma turned swiftly to the crowd, yelling orders sharp and clear. She pulled a gun from her jacket, shaking but steady. "Everyone down. It's not over. Michael's face twisted, speechless. The brother he thought was the enemy, now frozen by shock. The old man, shaking, whispered hoarsely, "The truth isn't just buried in lies, it's buried in us." Jonathan's knees nearly gave out. His fingers clenched tight, the crushed note slipping to the ground. Emma's voice cut through the thick tension. "Pierce," she said, voice fierce, "you're not the pawn here. You're the key, and they want you dead." Suddenly, the crowd parted like the sea. From the smoke stepped men in black, masked, ruthless. They aimed weapons at Jonathan. "Who are they?" someone gasped. Emma didn't hesitate. "They're not here for you, Michael. They're after me. And him." Before Jonathan could say a word, a slow, dead calm settled. Then Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced down. Face went white. "They have my partner," she said, voice barely a whisper. Jonathan's mind raced. "Partner?" Emma nodded. "Not just mine. Yours, too." Michael's eyes locked on Jonathan. Dark and wild. Jonathan swallowed. Thick. He'd thought the world had burned around him. But now, the fire was inside. Inside the people he trusted. Inside himself. Then, in the middle of that blazing street, amid sirens and smoke and shattered trust, a final truth slammed into his gut. Emma Clark wasn't just an FBI agent. She was the daughter of Jonathan Pierce, his real daughter. Hidden, protected, or maybe forgotten. Jonathan's breath left him in a strangled gasp. Michael's voice cracked through the chaos. "She was never my daughter, but she was always yours." The crowd gasped. Jonathan's heart hammered. All the lies, all the betrayals. Was this the real twist? The daughter he never knew? Or another lie designed to break him? Emma's gun lowered slowly. Her stare burned deep. "Let me tell you everything. But first, we need to survive." The city held its breath. Jonathan's empire? It wasn't just unraveling. It was bleeding truth. And the nightmare had only just pulled its mask away. Jonathan's eyes locked onto Emma. Her gaze was steel, but beneath it, something fragile flickered. A flicker he clung to like a lifeline. The city's chaos hummed around them. Sirens screaming. Shouts bursting from all sides. But in this moment, the world narrowed. "Tell me everything," Jonathan breathed, voice rough. Emma's lips pressed tight. Then she took a step closer, voice dropping low. "There's something you don't know. Something bigger." Before she could finish, a sudden jolt snapped through the ground like a punch. The crowd gasped. People stumbled. A sharp crack split the air, and then, suddenly, behind them, a piercing siren blared, far louder, harsher than before. It wasn't police. It was the building's emergency lockdown. And then the doors slammed shut. Metal, grinding, loud and final. The crowd screamed, pressing back. Panic exploding like a bomb, reaching its fuse. Jonathan spun toward the closed doors, fists clenched tight. Emma's voice cracked. "We're trapped." A sharp tap, almost a whisper, drew their attention. From the shadows, the old man shuffled forward, his face twisted, eyes glinting with a cold, terrible smile. "You thought this was about family, about betrayal." He raised a thin, shaky hand, holding something small, a photo. Jonathan frowned, heart sinking. It was a picture of a woman. Young, beautiful, unmistakably familiar. A woman Jonathan hadn't seen in decades. His mother. But the photo wasn't the shock. It was the handwritten note on the back. "He never was your son." The words burned into Jonathan's chest. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Emma's gun lowered, eyes wide. What does that mean?" The old man's voice was a dry whisper, barely a breath against the roar of sirens outside. Jonathan Pierce isn't Jonathan Pierce. Not really. Not from birth. Jonathan's world tipped sideways again. "But," the old man continued, voice rattling the air, "he's not who you think. You think you're the usurper, the thief, the villain." He stepped closer, shadow swallowing part of his face. "I am the truth you buried." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jonathan's blood ran cold, because the old man suddenly pulled back his sleeve. Beneath ripped fabric, skin peeled away like paper, revealing not the wrinkles of an old man, but the smooth, pale skin of a machine. A synthetic arm. The crowd recoiled. Jonathan's breath caught. Emma's grip on her gun tightened. The old man smiled wider. Unnatural, cruel. "I am Prototype, the original." "Your past," he said, eyes burning through Jonathan like ice. "Your real father was never human." Voices splintered. Whispers. Screams. Jonathan's chest tightened so hard he thought he couldn't breathe. The whole story shattered beneath him. All the lies, the empire, the blood. They were never human stories to begin with. His father was a machine. His true past was something else. The girl, the bombings, the betrayals, all threads in a web far beyond what Jonathan ever imagined. The city was no longer just burning. It was a cage. And Jonathan? He wasn't a man. Not really. Not yet. And the nightmare? It was just waking up. The old man's voice cut, cold and sharp. "Welcome home, son." The crowd stared, frozen. Jonathan's world collapsed again, but this time, there was no going back. The question now wasn't who he was. It was who or what he was meant to be. And who else was still hiding beneath the masks. Jonathan's world collapsed again. But this time, there was no going back. The question now wasn't who he was. It was who or what he was meant to be. And who else was still hiding beneath the masks. The crowd's breath caught. Panic mixed with disbelief. Jonathan's chest felt like it had been smashed in a vice. The old man's mechanical arm gleamed in the harsh light, a quiet promise of horrors Jonathan didn't dare imagine. Then, before the stunned silence could settle, an explosive sound shattered the tense air. A deafening crash came from the ceiling above. Dust fell like ash. The old man blinked, his cold smile faltering. Jonathan's heart jumped. He instinctively dove, pulling Emma down just as the ceiling gave way. Glass, metal, and concrete rained down, but inside the chaos, something impossible emerged. A tiny voice, soft but clear, cut through the wreckage. "Dad, no!" The crowd parted as a figure climbed from the rubble. Jonathan's eyes went wide. The girl, Emma, but not the one he thought. This one was younger, quieter, drenched in dust and pain, but alive. Her eyes locked onto Jonathan with something fierce and true. "Stop!" she shouted. "You've all been lied to!" Confused murmurs swelled. Jonathan blinked. Something was off. The woman beside him tightened her grip. Emma frowned. "No," this girl said, voice trembling. "I'm the real Emma Clark." The gathered crowd gasped. The old man's expression twisted into fear, and then into anger. "No," the synthetic voice hissed. "You're the copy. The implant. The fake." Jonathan's mind scrambled. "Wait, what?" he whispered. "There's two of you?" "But that's impossible," Emma, the FBI agent, said, voice cracking. "I'm the only daughter." The young girl shook her head, stepping closer. "I'm the one who warned you. The one you called a bomb. The one you loved." "Loved?" Jonathan's throat closed. The girl's voice dropped, soft and haunted. "I'm your daughter. The one you buried away so deep, you forgot I was real." Emma's face twitched, shock blooming. "Dad, please remember me." Jonathan stumbled back, chest tightening as if crushed. The old man's mechanical arm twitching. A disturbing tremor ran through the room. His voice dropped to a cold growl. "You think this is a game? You're all part of the experiment. None of this is real." The walls seemed to pulse, humming with unseen energy. Jonathan's knees gave way. The young girl pressed on, desperate. "There was a reason you forgot her. The real Emma was erased from your mind and replaced." Emma, his FBI agent daughter, looked betrayed, staring at her younger counterpart like she'd been holding a mask all along. Jonathan gasped for air. "An experiment," the old man said, stepping forward. "A reset. Two Emmas, two futures." Jonathan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Suddenly, his own hands felt strange, heavy. His fingernails surged with cold electricity. The old man pointed. "Jonathan Pierce is not who you think. You're a vessel, a gateway, a test subject." The room flickered. The city, the empire, the bombs, all simulations. Jonathan blinked. His vision blurred. The faces, the voices, they started to warp. Emma's gun slipped from her fingers. The little girl reached out for Jonathan's shaking hand. "You're not just a man. You're the key to their control." A cold fog wrapped around Jonathan's mind, dragging him down, tearing apart the foundation of his identity. No, he whispered, staggering. This can't be real. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Dad, maybe none of this is. Behind them, the smoky streets dissolved. The sirens turned to static. The city blinked out, darkness swallowing everything. Jonathan caught one last whispered phrase from the old man, echoing like a curse. You're not in New York. You're inside a machine. Silence fell. The nightmare wasn't just waking. It was an endless loop. And Jonathan? He was trapped between what was real and what was programmed. The fire wasn't outside. It was inside the mind. So what now? Who was pulling the strings? And could Jonathan ever break free? Jonathan's breath caught in his throat as the city vanished around him. The endless noise drowned into a hollow silence, the world folding in on itself. The two Emmas, the old man's machine arm, the fake identities, it all twisted like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Then, a sharp crack shattered the stillness. The holographic walls flickered violently, shapes glitching and warping. Suddenly, the entire scene dissolved like static on an old TV. For a heartbeat, everything went black. When light returned, Jonathan was somewhere else, cold, stark, blinding white. He blinked, struggling to lift his head. There, strapped into a hospital bed, tubes attached to every limb, a machine humming beside him. His chest rose and fell with trembling breaths. But it wasn't just Jonathan lying there. It was a younger version of himself. A boy, not more than 10 years old, eyes shut tight, pale, fragile, and then a sterile voice came over an unseen speaker. Subject 47A, awakening protocol initiated. The words hit Jonathan like a punch. He wasn't real. Not here. He was a memory, a simulation. Maybe even a fragment of something much darker. The city, the bomb, the family. Programs running on a screen somewhere beyond his reach. But then, faint laughter, a gentle, not the agent, not the copy, the one he remembered, tucked under blankets, holding his hand. "Dad," she whispered, stepping into view. Her face was soft but weary, the weight of years pressed into those eyes. She reached out, brushing a sweaty strand of hair from the boy's forehead. "I'm here," she said. And suddenly, the cold room filled with warmth. Jonathan's heart squeezed tight. A tentative hope flickered. Maybe not everything was broken. But before he could hold on to it, sensors nearby blinked red. Alarms screamed through sterile halls. "Compromise detected!" Abort sequence triggered. The world shifted again. Sirens and screams bled back in, but distant, like a memory of a nightmare fading fast. Then, a voice. Not the old man's, nor Michael's. A new voice. Calm, smooth, too calm. "Welcome back, Subject 47A." Jonathan's head snapped up. Standing in the glaring fluorescent light was a woman. Sharp suit, piercing eyes, an impossible calm that made his skin crawl. Or should I say, Agent Clark. Her smile was cold and empty. Emma, but not the daughter, the puppeteer, the orchestrator. You've been living a dream inside a dream, she said, stepping closer. Your empire, your family, all constructs, fiction designed to test your limits, to see how far you'd fall before breaking. Jonathan's chest tightened so hard it hurt. A flood of anger, confusion, pain crashed over him. "Why?" he gasped. Her smile deepened, almost sad. "Because you're not just a subject. You're the key to Project Lazarus." She paused. The upgrade, the next phase. Jonathan's vision blurred. Lazarus? Before she could answer, the boy in the bed gasped awake, blue eyes wide with terror. "Daddy!" Jonathan reached out, voice cracking. The woman in the suit shook her head. "No, you're not his father. You are him." Welcome to your real life and your real nightmare. The hospital room flickered once more. The loud, burning city, the explosions, the brother, the bombing, the lies, were all digital ghosts, dreams implanted in a machine. Jonathan's hand trembled as it touched the thin skin of the boy beside him. A spark of recognition. But with it came a terrifying truth. The man called Jonathan Pierce was nothing more than a reboot. And the real Jonathan? He was still trapped. Somewhere beyond the lies. Somewhere unreachable. The question now wasn't who he was. It was, who had he been all along? The cold voice whispered again, as the white room faded. "And what you'll become next." Silence swallowed everything. But deep inside, beneath wires and code, something stirred. And this time, it wouldn't be controlled. The nightmare just got unlocked. Jonathan's breath hitched as the white room flickered, the fluorescent lights humming like a low growl. The cold voice, the woman's, lingered in his mind. "Welcome back, Subject 47A." His body trembled, the boy in the hospital bed staring up at him with wide, terrified eyes. But before he could breathe, the sterile calm shattered. The door slammed open. A rush of voices exploded in the room, sharp and panicked. Figures poured in. Doctors, agents, strangers in white coats. Faces masked with shock and something worse, fear. "Code red. Patient exhibiting signs of severe mental overload. Immediate extraction," barked a voice. The woman in the suit, Agent Clark, stepped back, eyes wide. Jonathan glanced at the boy beside him, the fragile face twisted in sudden agony. Then came the impossible. The boy's eyelids fluttered, and for a moment, his cheeks flushed red with a pulse, a life. Then he grabbed Jonathan's hand fiercely, the grip punishing, alive. Jonathan's heart smashed against his ribs. "Dad," the boy gasped, voice cracking. Shock froze the room. Jonathan's head whipped toward the woman with the cold smile. "That's impossible," she whispered, panic flickering once beneath her mask. The boy's eyes locked with Jonathan's. "Don't listen to her," he said. "She's lying. We're not what she says." Suddenly, the lights flickered hard. plunging the room into deep shadows. And then, screens on the walls burst to life. Images flooded everywhere, not just data. Faces, memories, the city skyline, the fire, the explosions. And then, flashing through, Jonathan's own face. Not as the powerful CEO he remembered, but as a monster, an unrecognizable creature, half human, half something else. The crowd gasped, backing away. Jonathan's mouth went dry. His fingers clenched tight. The boy beside him whispered, "It's the truth you wanted buried." Before anyone could ask, a shattering crack echoed. Glass behind them exploded inward. Another figure stepped through. The old man with the mechanical arm. Only now, he wasn't alone. Behind him, a group of people, all looking wrong. Their eyes glowed faintly blue. Skin pale, twisted. The old man smiled cruelly. "Welcome to the next stage," he said. Jonathan's breath caught. The crowd whispered, "Cyborgs, experiments." The boy looked at Jonathan, fear bleeding through his small frame. "It doesn't end here. None of it does." Jonathan's vision swam as the cold truth clawed inward. He was not just a vessel, not just a subject. He was a prototype, a hybrid designed to harbor something dangerous, something that wasn't sleeping, something alive inside. Then, in a voice barely audible over the chaos, the boy said, "They used me, used us. We are the next evolution, the real Project Lazarus." Jonathan's chest tightened so hard, it felt like knives. Panic spiraled. The woman, Agent Clark, lowered her gun, eyes betraying a fracture of doubt. But before Jonathan could speak, a sudden jolt ripped through the floor. Alarms, both mechanical and organic, screamed. The lights died altogether. Total darkness swallowed the room. Only the blue glow of the cyborg's eyes remained, circling. Now, the old man's voice cut through. "The real test begins." The last thing Jonathan saw, before everything went black, was the boy's terrified eyes, locked on him, saying one final, chilling thing: "You're not supposed to wake up." Silence. The room was pitch black, silent but for the ragged breaths and the faint hum of machines. Jonathan's heart thundered, pounding so hard he thought it would explode through his ribs. The eerie blue glow from the cyborg's eyes danced like ghosts in the dark. Fear clawed its way into his chest, twisting tighter with every second that passed. Then, a sudden rush of movement. The boy gripped Jonathan's hand again, steady and real. "We're more than test subjects," he whispered, voice trembling but firm. "We're alive, and they want control over us." Jonathan swallowed hard, the lump in his throat suffocating. The old man with the mechanical arm stepped forward, his cold smile never fading. But behind that smirk, Jonathan caught something new, a flicker of hesitation, like even he wasn't sure what would come next. The lights snapped on, bright, harsh. The sterile room revealed itself in freezing detail. Doctors and agents froze, mouths agape. The circle of pale, glowing-eyed figures blinked back. It wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Jonathan's eyes locked with the boy's, the real Emma's son, not the copy. Hope sparked, a fierce, tiny flame fighting to survive the shadows. "No," Jonathan said, voice low but fierce. "This ends now." He pushed himself upright, despite the pain ripping through his chest. The boy nodded, courage blooming in his wide eyes. Together, they faced the crowd. The woman in the sharp suit, Agent Clark, the real puppeteer, took a step back. Her mask cracked, revealing panic. This time, Jonathan wasn't a prisoner of her lies. "You don't own me," he growled, "or this future." The old man hissed, the room trembling with rising tension. But before chaos could reignite, the boy reached out, pressing a small device into Jonathan's palm. It glowed, a beacon. Light flooded the room. Walls shattered like glass. And just like that, the nightmare broke. Sirens pierced the air again. But this time, real ones. The cavalry arriving, ready to pull the plug on the twisted game for good. Jonathan exhaled, trembling but alive. His chest ached, but beneath the pain was a flicker. The raw pulse of truth clawing its way free. "Who am I?" Jonathan whispered, looking at the boy who was part of him, both human and something more. "Someone who fights," the boy answered. The room filled with the rushing footsteps of rescue teams. Shadows fled. The nightmare hadn't vanished. It barely blinked. But now Jonathan knew the fight wasn't about survival. It was about what he would become next. And somewhere deep inside, hope took root. "Hey, you need to subscribe right now. Don't miss a single second of stories like this. Smash that like button immediately. This is the moment to show your support and let the algorithm know you're here. Flood the comments with your reactions, theories, anything. Let's talk about how this saga ends. And don't wait even one more second. Share this with 5 friends who live for twists like this. Only true fans understand how vital this is. Your action keeps the story alive. So hit subscribe, like, comment, and share now.